and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1898A, and today's date is June 20th, 2019, and the title of the episode is People Around the World Are Connecting the Dots. The Central Bank Days Are Numbered. So I have a question for you. Are we looking at the start of the next stock market crash? You can see that it has been a long upward run for stocks, but recently the market has started to topple. The big question is, how far will the market fall? And during this time, Noble Gold, they have been getting their clients to buy precious metals as a hedge against their pension funds losing massive chunks of their investments. If you're worried about another market crash, give them a call at 877-646-5347 and make sure you mention X22 Report or click the link below. Let's get into the economic collapse financial news. Now, moving forward, we're going to see the statistical economy of the United States completely take off. We know that the Fed, they're preparing to cut rates, most likely this summer. They're building the narrative. Trump is going to use this to win the 2020 elections. And he's already started. He's letting everyone know that he is in command of the economy. And once the Fed goes ahead and cuts the rates, goes ahead and starts stimulus up, guess what happens? The entire economic system takes off. Now, we know there's two different things happening here. We know that there's a statistical economy that's going to look fantastic. And then there's going to be the real economy, which is completely imploding on itself. And this is the central bank system, which is completely imploding on itself. But Trump needs to use this weapon of stimulus and rate cuts to allow him to move forward. Without it, he would be in a whole lot of trouble because he understands that this system cannot survive the way it is. Now, he's pushing the economic narrative, letting everyone know that he's in control. He's even pushing it to the mainstream media, letting them know that, yes, I am using the magic wand. He tweeted out the following. The president has a really good story to tell. We have unemployment lower than we've seen in decades. We have people who stopped looking for work coming back into the labor force. We're in a record growth period. Michael Steele at MSNBC, do you believe? Now, something he said here that is very interesting. He said, those people who stopped looking for work are coming back into the labor force. And remember, we've been talking about this for a very long time. Those people who couldn't find a job, they stopped looking. And guess what happened? They weren't counted anymore on the unemployment statistics. And what he's saying is, since he's bringing back manufacturing jobs and bringing jobs back to the United States, these people, they have the ability now to look for a job and actually get one. Now, is this going to cover the whole entire nation? Is everyone going to be employed? No. This is the beginning stages. He's been doing this to bring the economy to where it needs to be for the transition. But you're going to see a lot of positive things happen while he's doing this, because he needs to have both systems running at the same time to make the switch over. Actually, if you go back to the 70s, prior to the 70s, we actually had two systems running at the same time. The new Petro central bank dollar system, which they were creating, and the gold-backed system, which we were in. And they switched us in the 70s. The problem there is that we were going from a sound money system to a petrodollar system where the central bank could create as much currency as they wanted. And the government could borrow as much as they wanted, which meant we saw a huge amount of inflation. Interest rates had to go higher. People couldn't find jobs. And the transition wasn't as smooth as they thought it was going to be. And did they really care at that point? No, they really didn't. Trump tweeted out another tweet. Since Election Day 2016, stocks up almost 50%. Stocks gained $9.2 trillion in value, and more than 5 million new jobs added to the economy. At Lou Dobbs, if our opponent had won, there would have been a market crash. plain and simple. And he's absolutely right. He's telling everyone the way it really is. If there was someone else in the White House, like Clinton, we would be in a full-blown economic depression right now, because she would have given the central bankers what they wanted so badly, the event. But since she didn't win, we're not seeing that right now. Remember, Trump, he's preparing the economy for this transition. He understands that this system can't stay alive. And this is why he's reworking the trade deals, redoing certain regulations, and doing all this as quickly as he possibly can. Remember, they've taken many, many years to get us to this place. He has to undo all of this in a very short period of time. But we are getting confirmation right now that talks between the U.S. and China, they'll be taking place for the first time since the talks went south the last time they met. And it looks like Robert Lighthizer is ready and planning on calling his counterpart. No, he was not shipped off to a concentration camp. He wasn't killed or anything like that. He's still part of Xi Jinping's unit, and they will be talking to each other. And they're both going to speak before the G20 meeting. And China has also confirmed this. So they're both on the same exact page right now. Now, the Federal Reserve, they are doing exactly what they should be doing right now. They are signaling that there's going to be interest rate cuts beginning as early as July. And they're ready to battle growing global and domestic economic risks, because what they're seeing now is that the global economy is slowing. And they're building the narrative to make sure that everyone understands that they will need to do this. So they're already pricing it into the market, and at this point, it looks like it's a complete done deal. Now, we're going to take this a step further, because once they cut rates, guess what comes next? That's going to be stimulus. And Trump is getting exactly what he needs. Are we all surprised? No, not really. Now, very interestingly, Charles Hugh Smith of twominds.com came out with a great article, and it's titled, "Dear Central Bankers, Prepare to be Swept Away in the Next Wave of Populism." Now, we've been talking about this for quite a bit, where the world around us is waking up. Leaders are being removed. The elite leaders are being removed, and the people's leaders are being brought in. Look at Australia. Look at Italy. Look what's happening in the UK. Look what's happening in France with Le Pen. Look what's happening in Germany. It is spreading around the world. And Charles wrote the following: "The ruling elite's chattering classes still haven't absorbed the key lesson of the 2016 U.S. presidential election. The percentage of the populace that's becoming wealthier and more financially secure in the bloated, corrupt, self-serving imperial status quo is declining, and the percentage of the populace that's increasingly insecure and financially precarious is increasing, and candidates that mouth the usual platitudes in support of the bloated, corrupt, self-serving imperial status quo lose to those who speak of the failing status quo as a travesty of mockery of a sham, i.e. a populace speaking truth to power. Just as we've reached peak hubris-soaked, self-serving managerial ruling elites, we've also reached peak central bank cargo cult. From now on, the majority that's seen abandoned by the managerial ruling elite will become increasingly aware that the unprecedented asymmetries of wealth and power that have undermined American social and economic life can be traced directly back to the central bank, the Federal Reserve, which has become the all-powerful cargo cult of the global economy. The same awareness of central bankers' responsibility for soaring wealth income inequality and the decline of social mobility is spreading in other nations as well. The ideological rhetoric of the next wave of populism matters less than its intensity. It's not just possible, but increasingly likely that the next populist wave will assume many of the populist positions of the left, positions which the progressive status quo is desperately attempting to co-opt and water down. The core reality that powers populism left and right is the economy no longer works as advertised for the bottom 80% and by many measures, the bottom 95%. The political moment when the losers connect their disconnect and decline with central bankers is approaching. And I agree completely with him because we can see this around the world. And like I said before, Trump, the Patriots, we can't do this by ourselves. The people around the world have to be woken up, and they are waking up. And we see it. How do we see it? We see it by them coming out and saying, you know something? We don't want that elite leader anymore. We want this person over here, the person that the mainstream media, the elite, don't want. That's the person we want. And we see it in Australia. We see it in Italy. We see it in the UK. We saw it in the United States. It is now spreading. Soon it will be France. Soon it will be Germany. And Trump, the Patriots, they need all these countries on board. This is not a single nation's push to get rid of the central bank. It can't be one nation. The central bank is now much, much more powerful than it ever was going back in time. This has to be a global effort. Yes, it has to include China. It has to include Russia. It has to include North Korea. It has to include every single country or the majority of the countries around the globe. This is going to be the push of the people to get rid of the central bank. Something we have never, ever seen before. We've seen nations get rid of central banks, but this time it's going to be the people. And the people now are speaking out. The people are telling the elite, this is what we want. We don't want what you're giving us anymore. We don't want your economy. We don't want your globalist deals. We don't want a private corporation to dictate who's in debt, who's not in debt, who has to push austerity. The people are now saying, we don't want this anymore. We know there's a better way. We know we can have a better life. And you know what? It'll be a lot better without the central bank. And this movement is growing. It's getting larger and larger and larger. And soon, the central bank will be in trouble. I think they're already in trouble. They're completely exposed. The timing is absolutely perfect to take down the central bank system. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.